Part 30. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 291. Paper area. Shen Heshen carefully selected a pair of sandalwood fan bones that were not free. To match the fan bone, he chose a piece of gold-sprinkled paper silk. Lu Sen looked at the two things he carefully picked out with some confusion on his face. We are just experiencing and learning this time, there is no need to use such expensive materials, right? He can finally see that the studio is indeed very good, and everything he has seen is as good as what he wants to own, but the price is also really expensive. Although his family is not short of money, everyone in the family is also noble, and the family assets are far from enough to allow him to spend money wantonly. Now that you have such an opportunity to try it for free, why spend extra money? Shen Heshen twitched the corners of his lips. This is the first time he has made a paper fan, and he is really confident in his craftsmanship. Since the craftsmanship is not good, we can only work the materials. Otherwise, he would really be a little bit unable to use it as a gift. Especially because the person he is sending this gift to is his glorious cousin. However, he would not say it in front of outsiders if he was so unsure. He only insisted on taking the materials he chose. I prefer quality. Luxon. The two of them wanted to learn different things. After a brief conversation, they went about their business with the corresponding master. The atmosphere in the brush area is quiet and a bit silent. Lin Yo has been working hard since he sat down in his own seat, as if anyone who wants to interrupt my work is causing trouble for me. Jing Huai originally wanted to inquire about what happened to this person, but he had a hunch that the plagiarism incident that this person was carrying would definitely lead to a hot search topic when the program airs, regardless of whether he can clear his name in the end. But after opening my mouth several times in a row, I only got a few nods or which was very helpless, and I had no choice but to give up. Only by asking the master teaching opposite to say a few words from time to time can the scene in the camera not look like a silent film. He felt a little regret for choosing to learn how to treat calligraphy brushes. Asterisk. At the same time. Dida TV. After Mr. Shi got off the car, he turned around and helped his wife, who was getting out of the car behind him. Li Wangsuan helped her husband's arm get out of the station and stabilized her position. When she turned around, she saw a low-key black car parked behind the car that brought them here. At this moment, the door of the car behind opened, and the man in a gray shirt got out of the cab. That is, Xiao He. Mr. Shi also followed his wife's gaze and asked, "It's really Xiao He? Why are you here? Have you changed jobs?" He Zhu was holding a computer bag in one hand and was about to open the backseat door with the other hand. The door was pushed open from the inside first. He quickly took a step back and looked at his boss, who was getting out of the car. Although this is no longer the first time, I still can't help but take a breath. He thought that seeing his boss in a suit was enough to be eye-catching. He had seen him wearing ancient costumes for filming a few times, but this time, he felt that he needed to hold on to his sexual orientation. You must not be tempted by beauty. Boss. Shen Yunqing closed the car door with his backhand, and raised his hand to push the glasses that the stylist had matched for him on the bridge of his nose. He wanted to take them off, but hesitated for a moment and decided not to do so. You go back. He Zhu was stunned for a moment. Don't you want me to accompany you? I can wait for you while working in the coffee shop downstairs. It will be very late at night, I will just go back by myself. He Zhu immediately thought of Zhang Lingzi, who was on the same show. Well, boss, if you have any orders, please call me at any time. Before getting in the car, he couldn't help but look at his boss a few more times. Today's appearance was really stunning. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to see it from behind. Shi Lao and Li Wangsuan also looked at each other at this moment. When they saw the young man coming out of the car after Xiao He, the first guess that came to their minds was that Xiaohe had gone to the entertainment industry to work as an agent or assistant. In fact, the young man who had just stepped out of the car was really outstanding both in terms of appearance and overall temperament. Seeing that he was about to leave after sending the people there, Mr. Shi quickly shouted, "Xiaohe." Hizhu was about to pull the car door for a moment, then turned around and saw the two old men standing next to the car in front. "Grandpa Shi, Grandma Li, what do you two do?" The old couple walked towards him, and as they got closer, they couldn't help but glance behind Hizhu again. "We also want to ask you, when did you change your job and join the entertainment industry?" "No, no," facing the two elders who had watched him grow up, Hizhu waved his hands quickly, "I am loyal to my boss, and I have no plans to change jobs in this life." These words coupled with the serious expression on his face, no one can doubt the firmness in his tone. "Then why did you come to the TV station, and who is this person?" Hizhu didn't react just now, but now the eyes of the two elders fell on the boss standing next to him, and he suddenly understood why the two elders misunderstood that he had changed jobs. "I couldn't laugh or cry in my heart, and I was a little proud, but not all bosses are so young and promising and can be called the face of the company. Grandpa Shi, Grandma Li, this is my boss, surnamed Shen. I sent my boss here today." The couple suddenly had a look of realization on their faces, but they were still shocked in their hearts. They will know about Xiaohe's work naturally from what Xiaohe's own grandma said when he showed it off to them. As soon as he graduated, he joined a first-class group in the country. Within a few years, he became the assistant to the group leader. Although he could not inherit the artistic genes of the old He family, as the saying goes, the number one scholar in the 360 line of work is the best in the group. In the shopping mall, this age can definitely be called young and promising. But they had always thought that the boy's boss must be a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s, and his image was the slightly fatter look of the big bosses in their impressions. They never expected that it would be the person standing in front of them now. He was unexpectedly young and looked no worse than the actors and stars they saw on TV, not to mention his overall aura. Shen. Mr. Shi originally wanted to call him boss, but he always felt it was inappropriate when he said it, so he changed his mind temporarily. "Mr. Shen, we are neighbors of Xiaohe. We have watched this child grow up. I didn't expect that today would be such a coincidence. We met. My surname is Shi, and this is my wife, whose surname is Li." Mr. Shen must have some work to discuss at the TV station, so we won't waste your time. Shen Yunqing nodded slightly to the two old men. "Mr. Shi, Mrs. Jean, nice to meet you." "I am." Before he finished speaking, he saw several staff members wearing TV uniforms running out from the TV station gate. They were communicating with walkie-talkies as they ran. "How far is Mr. Su from us?" "We will be here soon." "There is no time to clear the place. Come on, let Teacher Su's nanny car park directly at the door." "Why are there still two cars parked here? Please move them away." Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 292. Seeing several people running past with cheers, Li Wangsuan frowned slightly and said, "Teacher Su, the ostentation is really grand." Mr. Shi patted the back of her hand lightly and said, "She should be a very famous star. There are many people coming and going around here. I'm afraid that showing up will cause congestion. Just get used to it. Fortunately, we don't have anything like this on this show." Mr. Shi looked at Shen Yunqing and said, "It looks like they will arrive soon. Let's go in first." Hizhu returned to the car and drove away. Shen Yunqing followed the two old people into the TV station lobby. When walking towards the front desk, Mr. Shi took out his and his wife's pass cards and put them on. He noticed the glances at his work pass in his hand. "Isn't it the first time Mr. Shen comes to work here?" This is an exclusive work permit. You will need this to go to any floor or department after entering the TV station. If Mr. Shen has made an appointment in advance, you can get it by reporting your identity at the front desk. Shen Yunqing looked away from the pass hanging on Shi Lao's chest, with a faint smile on his lips. Thank you for letting me know. There was only a little girl guarding the front desk at the moment. When he walked over, he heard the other party complaining softly, everyone has gone to see Teacher Su, so I am left alone to guard it. It's too much. He tapped the countertop lightly. Han Lingling, who was holding her cell phone and scolding her colleagues, frowned and raised her head, then froze. Hello. Hello. She could feel that her face was already hot without touching it. Han Lingling finally found her voice. Sir, how can I help you? Shen Yunqing took out his mobile phone and clicked on the QR code sent to him by the program team. Han Lingling quickly stood up and scanned it with her work machine, and a message suddenly appeared on the computer screen in front of her. Shen Yunqing, special commentator of Heritage. It's me. Only then did Han Lingling realize that she had read out the scanned information unconsciously, and she suddenly blushed again. He quickly lowered his head to find the prepared pass and handed it over with shaking hands. Shen, Mr. Shen, your work pass. The studio of Heritage is on the 6th floor. Do I need to take you up? Even though she couldn't leave her post without permission, if she was giving directions to the person in front of her, she wanted to say, I can. No need, I'll just go up with the other commentator. Well, then, Mr. Shen, walk slowly. Han Lingling watched the figure leave with regret on her face. She reluctantly moved away until her sight was blocked. Mr. Shi looked at Shen Yunqing, who came back with a pass in his hand. He was about to say goodbye when his wife next to him exclaimed, Are you also the reviewer of Legendary? Shi Lao. He looked over intently and found that the content printed on the other party's pass was the same except for the name of the pass holder. He was also stunned for a while. Shen Yunqing put on his pass and nodded politely to the two old men. Yes. But you're not. If they were celebrities, they would still be able to accept it? After all, one of the guests has already been admitted to the entertainment industry. But for someone who is doing business in a shopping mall to comment on calligraphy and paintings, this is a bit unreasonable. Even if the person in front of them doesn't look like a businessman at all in their first impression, they may not be able to understand calligraphy and painting. Shen Yunqing, why does this name sound familiar to me? Shi Lao half squinted his eyes and was lost in thought until his eyes fell on Shen Yunqing's hand holding the mobile phone, and a low-key black jade bracelet came into view. Wait a minute, I remembered, you are the one playing chess with Zhang Xiao in the video Xiao Wei sent me. Shen Yunqing nodded and admitted, old Shi has a good eye. Shi Lao. The mood is extremely complicated. He remembered that he not only wanted Zhang Xiao to come over, but he also wanted to invite the other person playing chess in the video, but Xiao Wei declined. The reason given to him was that he couldn't afford it. Fortunately, he was satisfied if he could just invite one, and he didn't force it anymore. Unexpectedly, the other party turned out to be one of the special reviewers of Heritage, Calligraphy and Painting. The other party is actually Xiao He's boss. It turns out that this is what Xiao Wei said he couldn't afford. Until he sat in the studio where the program team had arranged for the special commentator, Mr. Shi was still a little unable to regain his senses. There was still one person left. When he saw his wife sitting in the commentator's seat in the middle, waving to him, he quickly got up and walked over. What's wrong, Wan Xian? Li Wangxuan glanced at Shen Yunqing, who was sitting on the far left about 3 meters away from her, handed over the tablet computer provided to each reviewer, and whispered, I just looked at Mr. Shen's information. There was still a hint of exclamation in her tone. This Mr. Shen is more than just Xiao He's boss. Shi Lao took the tablet and saw the basic information of reviewer Shen Yunqing displayed on it. Reason for special invitation, Deputy Leader of the Calligraphy and Painting Research Group of Yinhe Palace Museum, senior appraisal expert of ancient calligraphy and painting. Can't help but take a breath, that's it. I didn't get this qualification as a reviewer by virtue of my status as a big boss. Just these two titles above are definitely enough to serve as a reviewer for the painting and calligraphy chapter. Today's young people. Lao Shi did not continue, he just said silently in his heart, do young people nowadays have so many identities? Just like that girl Zhang Lingzi, she is an actress, a Go master, and also has considerable talent in calligraphy and painting. In the end, he only condensed into one sentence, the waves behind the Yangtze River push the waves ahead. Li Wangsuan rarely nodded in agreement. She had already been amazed when she saw the message. Look at the reviewer who hasn't arrived yet, he stroked his finger on the tablet. Lao Shi couldn't help but frown after reading it. Su Qingmei, an outstanding actor, Domestic Suzaku Award Best Actress, International Best Actress nominee, another actor. Li Wangsuan nodded, it seems that he is still a very famous actor. Old man, I don't know why, but I have an ominous feeling. Shi Lao raised his head, met his wife's eyes, and nodded after being silent for a second. To be honest, I have a little bit too. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, the door of the studio was suddenly pushed open from the outside, and then a bunch of people walked in. Teacher Su, your seat is here, please take a seat. The woman, who was surrounded by people, did not speak, and there was no expression on her face, which was mostly covered by sunglasses. Instead, the person walking next to her glanced at the only empty seat and asked, isn't our teacher Su's seat in the middle? Ah, this has been arranged for a long time. But we have clearly informed the program team before. Okay, respect your elders. Su Qingmei opened her red lips slightly and interrupted her assistant's words in a cold voice. Her eyes fell on the person sitting on the other side of the empty seat. A look of surprise flashed through her eyes hidden by her sunglasses. I will sit in that seat. All right. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 293. Chapter 293. I feel itchy. Who did I learn the word from? 7 guests are now learning how to make pen, ink, paper, and inkstones in the studio. Are the commentators and teachers ready? If so, we will turn on the camera. Su Qingmei just turned her eyes to the side after sitting down. Before she could say hello, she was interrupted by the staff, and a trace of displeasure flashed on her face. But before she could speak, Li Wangsuan, who was sitting in the middle, had already smiled and nodded, open it, just to see how these little guys are doing. After the words fell, across from the 5 people, the huge LCD screen that was originally closed suddenly lit up, and 4 split screens appeared, corresponding to the 4 areas of pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. Do these children now know that the reviewer is observing them? The PD in charge here saw Mr. Shi, who was asking the question. He didn't dare to neglect at all. He quickly shook his head and replied, I don't know. Mr. Shi, in this issue of the calligraphy and painting chapter, the state between the reviewer and the guests in front of the camera is they do not interfere with each other. The guests are only responsible for reflecting the inheritance of calligraphy and painting, and the commentators are only responsible for commenting on the performance of the guests. That's fine, it's more real this way. That's what Mr. Shi said. Shen Yunqing adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose and glanced across the 4 split screens. He soon found the figure in the second ink-making area who was beating the ink block with his back to the camera. Unknowingly, the corners of his mouth he smiled. After a while, he moved his eyes to the paper-making area in the lower left corner and glanced at Shen Heshan, who was immersed in making a fan. Before entering this room, Su Qingmei planned to observe Zhang Lingzi's performance under the camera. But now, there is someone who interests her more. picked up the tablet placed on the table in front of her. She seemed to be staring at the LCD screen like everyone else, but her corner of her eye and attention fell on the tablet in her hand. In addition to the information of the guests, there are also the information of 5 reviewers on the tablet. After reading Shen Yunking's information, Su Qingmei felt even more interested. She is actually a staff member of the museum. She has favored men from all walks of life, but has never tried the type of scholar. Especially the person next to her who is both excellent in appearance and temperament. It's really hard not to make her feel itchy. Turn off the tablet and look at Jing Huai on the screen, who is learning to make brushes from a master. It was obviously still the same face that she admired before, and the classical temperament that she liked was still there, not to mention the antique environment bonus. But no matter how I look at it now, it seems a bit boring. Li Wangsuan was sitting on the other side of Su Qingmei. Even if she didn't pay special attention, she could still notice that the little star next to her was absent-minded. She couldn't help but sneer in her heart. If possible, she really wanted Mr. Shen to switch seats with this big star Su. Putting aside her dissatisfaction, after watching the performances of the 7 guests on the screen, she touched the microphone on her collar. The girl in Suyi who painted Burning Life, the inkstone she wants to repair doesn't look very good. Repair, can it be repaired today? The 2 commentators sitting on the other side of her spoke in unison. Compared to others, her task is indeed more difficult. Li Wangsuan looked out of the camera. What if this is not completed? PD's voice came from outside the camera, with a hint of regret. Then it can only be considered a mission failure. Su Qingmei also glanced at the little girl who was sitting cross-legged on the ground and carefully gluing the pieces together regardless of her appearance. There are 2 guests in the other 3 screens, but there is only Suyi in this split screen. I thought in my heart, don't overestimate your capabilities. There was a hint of regret on the face. I see that other districts are almost finished. It's such a pity for this Suyi girl. Just when no one thought Suyi could complete the task, the last comment sounded, repair is something that practice makes perfect. The hardest part is the beginning. After you learn how to repair, you just have to repeat the process. You might as well looking forward to it again. Li Wangsuan immediately looked past Su Qingmei and looked at Shen Yunqing. Thinking about this, she was about to speak. Mr. Shen deserves to be working in a museum. When it comes to restoration, we are laymen, but you are an expert. Then I will follow Mr. Shen and look forward to seeing if this girl in Suyi will give us a surprise in the end. Li Wangsuan couldn't help but raise her hand and pinch her eyebrows. Although the meaning of Su Qingmei's words was similar to what she originally intended to say, she still felt a little awkward after listening to it now. Mr. Shi has been paying attention to his wife. When he saw her raising her hand to pinch her eyebrows, he knew that she was a little impatient. Since he didn't have a camera, he frowned and glared at Su Qingmei. You still respect the elders? Is it called respecting the elders before you speak before your seniors? Shen Yunqing listened to the compliment without any trace of it. He didn't turn his head even half an inch and looked at the screen intently. He changed the subject without any trace. Shen Heshen's fan is ready. When everyone was reminded by him, they immediately turned their attention to the split screen again. This guy seems to be the fastest. Wait, why did he get to the brush area? I borrowed a brush. Are you planning to inscribe or paint on the fan? I took the brush to the ink making area again. I guess this is really my plan. Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi looked at Shen Heshen, who came in with a fan in one hand and a writing brush in the other. He kept beating the ink on his hands, and he still had enough time to chat. Is your fan ready? The young man had a little pride on his face that he failed to suppress, and he tried his best to nod his head reservedly. It's done, but I plan to write a few more words on the fan to make it even more perfect. Qianyaya weakly raised her head and looked at the fan in Shen Heshen's hand, with regret on her face. You are going too fast. If I had known, I would have chosen this too. After speaking, She looked at the ink ball in front of her, and looked hopefully at the old master who was holding ink for Shen Hessian. Master. Zhang Lingzi sat next to her, took one look at her and concluded, not yet. Huh, Qianyaya couldn't help but wailed, I think it's almost done. After the master handed the ink sticks to Shen and Chen, he walked over with his hands behind his back. He looked at the ink sticks in front of them and shook his head, no way. Zhang Lingzi was not surprised by this evaluation. She also knew that the beating was not yet done. Change your hand and continue. Qianyaya loosened the hammer, shook her arm vigorously, and said a little unwillingly, then how long do you think the hammering will take? At least 3,000 blows. The old master held out 3 fingers, paused and then said ruthlessly, Xiao Jiang's piece still has 1,000 blows, and you, 2,000. Qianyaya felt her eyes go dark and almost buried her face in the ink. It also made several commentators who were watching their performance laugh. After Shen Hessian borrowed a pen and ink, he originally planned to go back to the paper and silk area to write, but when he thought that there was Lu Sen in the paper and silk area who talked a lot after getting acquainted with him, he hesitated and moved a chair to stay. In the ink-making area, I found a clean inkstone on the table, dripped water, and polished the ink. After polishing, I dipped my pen in the ink, waved my hand and wrote a few calligraphy characters on the fan. Zhang Lingzi originally just glanced at him casually, but when she saw the large characters with still wet ink on the golden fan, her eyes paused. Who did you learn this word from? Follow me, my cousin. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 294. Chapter 294. It takes hundreds of blows to get good ink. Well written. Thank you, Teacher Zhang. Qianyaya also looked over curiously, and her cat eyes suddenly widened visibly. What a good word. It doesn't look like Yuan Zhao Ti, but it looks somewhat similar to Yuan Zhao Ti, she said, touching her chin. These words are more delicate and elegant. They are based on Yuan Zhao Ti by your cousin. Did you make any changes and incorporate your own style? Shen Hessian really hasn't studied this before. I don't know if it has anything to do with Yuan Zhao Ti. My cousin asked me to copy it, so I just copied it. When I go back to study Yuan Zhao Ti, or ask my cousin Bar, if he has a chance to meet his cousin this time. Qianyaya was quite eager to get to the bottom of the casserole in calligraphy, and continued to ask with some reluctance, then what post did you use for copying? What was its name? It doesn't have a name, so it's probably not a famous post. Shen Hessian shook his head and felt that the ink on the paper fan was almost dry, so he put it away neatly. Actually, it's nothing. You continue your work, I'll go and hand in the work first. What he didn't say was that he suspected that his cousin had written the words he copied. But he was really scared by Qianyaya's questions now. This girl seemed to have 100,000 questions when she encountered calligraphy. Qianyaya stared at Shen Hessian's back until it disappeared from sight, then looked away. Yeah, I should take a photo of the words with my phone and go back and ask my aunt. Zhang Lingzi looked towards her, raised her hand and tapped her chin. He reminded, the ink has touched my chin. Qianyaya immediately stopped worrying about what Shen Hessian had just written and began to wipe her chin vigorously. Asterisk. A chuckle suddenly came from the reviewer's observation room. Sensing that the attention of the people around her had been attracted, Su Qingmei put down the hand covering her mouth and said, why did Teacher Zhang suddenly ask who Shen learned the calligraphy from just now? I thought she recognized whose calligraphy it was. He stopped talking again, which is really appetizing. After speaking in a joking tone, she hesitated for a moment and then looked in the direction of Li Wangsuan. I haven't studied this area deeply. Can Senior Li tell what kind of font Mr. Shen is practicing? She actually wanted to ask Shen Yunqing, but she knew she couldn't do it too obviously. Fortunately, there are 3 full days of recording, and there are still many opportunities later. I can't afford to be a senior like you. Although Lee Wangsuan smiled back, as a husband, Mr. Shi could tell at a glance that his wife's smile was purely polite. You are from the entertainment industry, and I am from the art industry. Our circles are different. Senior, please don't call me random. Just call me Mr. Li. In front of the camera, Su Qingmei's expression did not change at all. She smiled and nodded calmly. I made a slip of the tongue. I apologize to Mr. Li. Li Wangsuan just looked at her and saw a face with a particularly sincere smile, and she couldn't help but feel a little shuddered. It should be said that she is an actress. If it were her, she would not be able to stand it anymore and get up and leave. The little girl named Qianyaya made a good analysis. The character just now does have some Yuan Zhao style connotations, but not completely. To be honest, I haven't seen this font before. It's either very niche or the style created by Shen Heshan's cousin. A self-created style. Su Qingmei narrowed her eyes. That's awesome. If you put it this way, does teacher Zhang know the cousin of student Shen? However, compared to this guess, she hoped that Shen Heshan's calligraphy itself was very niche. Now looking at the 7 guests in turn, it can be seen that Shen Heshan should be the one with the best family background among the 7 guests. Then Shen Heshan's cousin is naturally not much different. Zhang Lingzi cannot have such help. Then I don't know. Li Wangsuan no longer wanted to continue this topic. Her eyes fell on another split screen. The 2 guests in the brush area have also finished. Asterisk. Pen making area. Jing Huai held the completed brush in his hand. The pen body is made of bamboo and wood, and is made of gray wolf hair. Originally, it seemed to him that it was pretty good. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have that much patience and would spend most of a day just to make such a pen. But, I am afraid of comparison. He pursed his lips and looked at the pen held by the old master who was responsible for teaching them how to make calligraphy brushes. The same bamboo and wood pen body, but made of white wool. It was made by Lin Niu, who was almost 10 minutes ahead of him. The bonding point is very strong, and the 4 elements are sharp, round, and healthy. It can be seen that a lot of care has been taken. The old master smoothed his beard and handed the brush back with a look of relief after making an evaluation. Lin Niu quickly took it and said, "Thank you for your guidance." Jing Huai met the old master's gaze and was stunned for a moment, then quickly handed over the brush in his hand. "Master, this is the wolf hair I made." The inspection process was exactly the same as before. Jing Huai observed the words and expressions. After seeing the old master frowning, he couldn't help but get worried. "It's not bad. It's my first time to learn how to make pens. It's great if I can make a usable finished product." After a pause, "Not many young people nowadays can calm down and do this." Jing Huai tried his best to smile and took the brush with both hands. "You taught me well." The words of comfort at the end are not something I really want to hear. Su Qingmei listened to the comments on the split screen, which showed a huge gap between the front and back. Although the smile was always on her face, her eyes were a little darker. It can be said that Jing Huai was able to be on this show because of her, and it was also her face that was used in front of the director Chen Weiwen. Now that she is just making a writing brush, she cannot compare with that person named Lin Niu, which indirectly embarrasses her face. Really, I feel like it's getting worse and worse the more I look at it. Simply looked away, not bothering to comment. The 4th one to complete was Lu Sen, who made a piece of Chinsentang paper that Zhang Lingzi had touched before. After receiving high praise from the old master, the arrogance in his eyebrows suddenly returned. The only ones that are busy right now are the ink-making area and the hidden task area. Suyi is still gluing the fragments together in an orderly manner. This is a slow and meticulous job. But if you compare her current speed with the speed when she was first bonded, you can see that her efficiency has been improving. The old master who was sitting next to him and giving instructions from time to time was aware of it, but he didn't say a word to remind him. He only patiently watched the calm movements of the little girl in front of him. I can't do it anymore. Jianyaya put down the hammer. Master, you see I can do it now, I really can't lift my arm. It's barely usable. Are you sure you want to reverse the mold now? Jianyaya glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was still pounding, and hesitated for a moment before nodding hard. Okay. As long as it works, it's fine. Anyway, the ink strips my aunt gave her will probably only be used when practicing calligraphy. Jianyaya took the ink ball to cast the mold, but Zhang Lingzi was the only one left on the spot who continued to beat it. Su Qingmei looked at the figure on the screen, who seemed to be an old monk in trance. A dark light flashed in her eyes, and her tone was worried. Teacher Zhang is so thin, but I didn't expect that he is very strong. I have to beat him. Some masters said it's 3,000. As long as Mo can use it, why bother trying to be brave? I won't even be able to lift my arms tomorrow. It takes 1,000 blows to get good ink. Shen Yunqing stared at the figure on the split screen. If you can't bear this little pain, then don't waste the materials for making ink in the first place. Su Qingmei felt her cheeks burning for a moment as she listened to the unceremonious rebuttal of her words. Unexpectedly, another sentence came from the other side. Mr. Shen's words are reasonable, I agree. Su Qingmei. She hasn't had this feeling of being unable to step down for a long time. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 295. The ink sticks made by Jianyaya had been placed in a special drying room. She looked at the ink sticks that Zhang Lingzi was still pounding, and boldly touched them with a thoughtful look on her face. How do I feel about Teacher Zhang? This piece of ink is slipperier than mine. Is it an illusion? It's not an illusion, answered the old master, who also looked satisfied at the ink ball. This means that the glue has been completely integrated into the ink. When the time comes, the writing will be smooth and not sluggish, and the ink color has a faint bluish purple color. The ratio is perfect, and with enough beating, the quality of this ink will definitely be rated as high quality when it is finished. As he spoke, he glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was still hammering repeatedly with a small hammer. He now seriously doubted that this little girl was not a novice. After all, even he, an expert in making ink, was praised by his master for his talent at the beginning. The ink he made at the beginning was only slightly better than that of the little girl named Qian. To be honest, what Xiao Zhang has made is no worse than when he started his apprenticeship. Had he not known that the other party would not be able to take this path, he would have wanted to ask this girl if she would be the heir to his legacy. Jianyaya felt a little depressed when she thought of the evaluation her master had given her as barely usable. However, she also noticed Zhang Lingzi's seriousness, and it was his ability to get such a high evaluation. So he gave a thumbs up and said, Teacher Zhang, give you a thumbs up. She originally wanted to ask if the ink would be sold after it was made, but when she thought that this person was also an actor and would definitely not be short of money, she swallowed her words silently. Zhang Lingzi received the positive and pure emotion in the little girl's eyes and smiled back, thank you. Jianyaya tilted her head and looked at Zhang Lingzi's profile. Although she was a fan of Jing Huai, she didn't know much about Zhang Lingzi, who was also an actor. Before, she only knew that there was such a person in the entertainment industry. But after getting along with him for the day, she found that she was only extremely excited about Jing Huai when they first met, but later she was more attracted to the man in front of her. Speaking of which, all of their guests are good looking, but it seems like some of them can shine. Even if they are silent, people still can't take their eyes away after seeing them. Is it possible that this is the personality charm that my aunt often talks about? Teacher Zhang. Zhang Lingzi looked away and glanced at Jianyaya, who suddenly called her with confusion. What kind of work did you draw when you signed up for this program? Su Qingmei, who was sitting in front of the observation platform and was feeling depressed, softened when she heard this. Looking at Zhang Lingzi on the split screen with burning eyes. The old master's evaluation of Zhang Lingzi just now was a complete slap in the face. professionals all spoke highly of her. So her claim that Zhang Lingzi was trying to show off her strength for the sake of the show's effect is naturally untenable. However, works. Did Zhang Lingzi submit any works for this show? Isn't it the same as Jing Huai, who also lost his relationship? It's just that Jing Huai left her, and Zhang Lingzi should have left that old man. Qianyaya asked this question very well. She would like to see what Zhang Lingzi's response is. However, before she was ready to watch the show, she saw Zhang Lingzi on the split screen replying, "It's a painting. I didn't have a name originally. The people around me picked it up for me after seeing the painting. It's called Cat Goose War. Cat and Goose War, are the animals painted? Ink or fine brushwork? Ink painting. I don't know if I have a chance to see it." Su Qingmei pressed her fingers on the table so hard that they turned slightly white, then she suppressed the disbelief on her face. Zhang Lingzi actually submitted her work. Then was she selected because of her work, or was it because of her that the program team approved Cat and Goose Wars? The latter is best. It can only be the latter. Speaking of which, a voice said from the side, "Although we can only select a few guests for this show, the works collected by the program team this time are quite good. I suggest that at the end of the show, we might as well put everyone's works together. Let's put it on display and let the audience appreciate it, and it's not in vain for everyone's hard work." As soon as Li Wangsuan said this, the two reviewers sitting on the left nodded in unison and said in unison, "I agree." Then Su Qingmei heard Shen Yunqing also say, "I agree." Now it was useless for her to say anything. She dug at the corner of the table and smiled, "I also agree. Every work is the hard work of every young painter. The ones that can be handed over to the program team must be their own. I think those who were not selected will be very happy to have such an opportunity to show their favorite works on a national TV variety show." As for Jing Huai's lack of works, Su Qingmei's idea was very simple. Either take the time to paint one, or buy one at a high price. Either way, it would be an easy solution. Although Li Wangsuan could tell that Su Qingmei's words were not sincere, she had to say what she said in this situation, and it was quite to the point. This proposal was not difficult for the program team to implement and was quickly adopted. It's just that the guests don't know it yet. Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi looked at the small hammer in her hand that was as smooth as new and said, "That's it?" "It's indeed okay." The old master handed her the blank mold he had prepared earlier. "If there is no stain on the hammer, it means that the glue and ink are completely compatible. Let's start pouring the mold." Zhang Lingzi put down the hammer and reached out to pick up the ink ball. First, he took out a small ball and rolled it into thin strips. Then he put it into the mold and pressed it with a wooden board that was the same size as the groove of the mold. By the time the mold is removed, a rectangular ink strip has already been formed. Just press 6 pieces in total. She had planned it when she was preparing to make ink. She would keep 2 of the 6 ink strips for herself. An also learned calligraphy, so he would give her 2, and the remaining 2 would simply be given to Shen Yunqing. After all, this person lacks everything, so let's give her something she made with her own hands. After sending the still limp ink sticks to the drying room, Zhang Lingzi moved her aching shoulders, said something to the master, and walked out of the ink-making area. When he came out, he saw Qianyaya standing in front of Jing Huai, holding a brush in his hand and looking at it over and over. She also glanced at the brush. Unsurprisingly, the brush was probably made by Jing Huai himself. After all, in her opinion, the brush work was a bit sloppy and did not look like the craftsmanship of the masters in the studio. The next second, I heard Qianyaya say, "Brother Jing Huai, when my ink is finished later, can you use this brush you made and my own ink to write a signature for me? We agreed before that we should write it in Yuan Zhao style, okay?" Zhang Lingzi turned around and walked towards the inkstone area. When she walked around the screen, she heard a stiff reply from behind, "Okay, okay. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 296. Chapter 296, The aesthetics have not changed, is he worthy? Leaving the accompanying photographer to stay outside, Zhang Lingzi walked to the inkstone she had been eyeing. Seeing the person in charge coming over, he asked directly, "Is this square inkstone for sale?" Since she has MO, she cannot keep it away due to her personality, so she simply gathers the other three treasures of the study at once. It just so happens that the things in the studio are pretty good in her opinion. It's for sale, Teacher Zhang plans to buy it. Well, I also want to purchase some other brushes and paper. Without waiting for the person in charge to react, he said, "I'll pick it up later and ask my assistant to come over and pay." Inexplicably, he became the person in charge of a business. Okay, Teacher Zhang. So after Zhang Lingzi came out of the inkstone area, she went to the calligraphy brush area and the paper and silk area. She did not bring a photographer with her, so she could only be seen in front of a fixed lens. It feels quite elusive. The observers were also confused. What is Zhang Lingzi doing? Wandering around. Su Qingmei looked at the guests who had gathered together after completing the task, then looked at Zhang Lingzi who was walking alone, and chuckled, "Teacher Zhang looks a bit out of place. While everyone else is staying calm in front of the camera, you are the only one who is restless. Are you going to be unique?" She was picking out something. Picking things, Su Qingmei subconsciously questioned, looking at the figure passing by in the camera. How did Mr. Shen notice that? Why didn't I see that she was picking things? Who only takes a quick look at something before leaving? When she goes to the mall and sees a bag she likes, she will pick it up and carry it. Shen Yunqing noticed the brush and paper that Zhang Lingzi looked at a few times, and thought to himself, "Your Majesty's aesthetics have really not changed at all." As for the murmuring questions from the side, Quan pretended not to have heard them. Su Qingmei waited for a while but didn't get a reply. She couldn't help but turn her head and looked over. She saw that this person was looking at the split screen seriously, with no intention of answering her. The corners of his mouth twitched and he took a deep breath. Then the PD responsible for field control received her look over. "Be sure to cut this section when editing. Su Yinghao cannot be humiliated by anyone. Especially in front of the camera." Asterisk. Unconsciously, the sunset was already filling the sky outside the window. Su Yi's inkstone repair mission has finally come to an end, but the closer he is to success, the harder it is to relax, as any effort will be wasted if he is not careful. The old master originally wanted to remind her at this time, but seeing that the girl was still calm and not a little irritated, he swallowed the reminder again. There was a cheer from Jianyaya outside. Her ink was taken out from the drying room. A few soft ink strips will have turned into hard ink strips when you put them in. Even when Zhang Lingzi heard the noise coming from outside, she couldn't help but secretly praise, "This drying room is really convenient." If this was done in ancient times, it would have to be done in the shade for at least a month or two, or even half a year. Now with the blessing of technology, it will be done in a while. The speed has increased so much. "Brother Jinghuai, my ink is ready." Jinghuai looked at Jianyaya walking towards him excitedly holding an inkstick, inkstone and rice paper, and the hand holding the brush couldn't help but tremble. Still not escaped. He originally thought of writing a piece for this girl in private and then finish it, but now he had to finish it in front of the camera. He was really unhappy about being forced to put it on the shelves. Unexpectedly, Lu Sen put his arm around Shen Heshen's shoulders and came over. "Let's also appreciate Teacher Jing's Yuan Zhao style." "Teacher Jing, don't you mind?" Jinghuai smiled and bit his back teeth. "Of course I don't mind. Qianyaya has already set up the inkstone and announced the decree, and diligently started to grind the ink. Li Wangsuan looked at the screen with a little sore eyes, and looked at the young man who was about to write on the screen at the moment. She remembered that Jing Huai was the star who landed in the air. Now that she knew that the other person also had the Yuan Zhao Ti, which was the most difficult to practice, her dissatisfaction with this person was reduced a bit. She sighed, few young people would choose to practice Yuan Zhao Ti these days. It's rare that Jing Huai can actually do it. Su Qingmei originally wanted to ask if Yuan Zhao Ti was related to Emperor Yuan Zhao, but if she asked that if you do, you may expose your ignorance. Although she could ask the program team to cut out this section during editing, she still didn't want Chen Yunqing, who was sitting next to her, to know that she didn't even know this. I had no choice but to keep this doubt in my heart silently. Brother Jing Huai, the ink is ready. Jing Huai held the brush that had been dipped in ink, looked at the blank rice paper under his hand, and took a deep breath. Until now, he could only comfort himself silently. There were very few handwritings left by Emperor Yuan Zhao, and more were copied by later generations. Even if his writing was not very similar, not many people should be able to see it. Everyone who can see it cannot gather around him. Even if he could see it, he could explain that what he used to practice Yuan Zhao Ti was just a copy of a later generation. It can be understood even if it is not written in real Yuan Zhao style. Thinking about it, he suddenly made up his mind. Have Yaya thought about what you want me to write? Qianyaya nodded quickly. She had already thought about it. Brother Jing Huai, just write, fresh clothes and angry horses will live up to your youth. This is my favorite sentence. I will write it as a gift to Yaya. After signing it at the end, just put your signature. Jing Huai responded with a smile, okay. As soon as the word fresh came out, Qianyaya's little face full of expectation froze, and Lucen and Shen Heshan who were watching couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. However, the changes in the expressions of the three people were not noticed by Jing Huai, who was writing seriously. There are only 13 words in total, and they were written quickly. Jing Huai put down the brush and then looked up at Qianyaya, who was standing opposite and seemed a little distracted. Yaya, I've finished writing. Ah, okay, Qianyaya quickly smiled, thank you, brother Jing Huai. You're welcome. It's not very well written, just don't mind it. No, I don't dislike it, I don't dislike it. Lucen and Shen Heshan looked away from the 8 characters and looked at each other silently without saying anything. Although they have never seen the handwriting written by Emperor Yuan Zhao, they can still distinguish the quality of the handwriting. Regardless of whether the character written by Jing Huai is in Yuan Zhao style or not, they really look down upon this character. If you have to evaluate it, you can only evaluate its form but not its spirit. Fortunately, this person is self-aware and knows that his writing is not good. The reason why I was selected for this show is probably because of my painting skills. Look at Qianyaya, who smiled and accepted the gift handwritten by her idol. This is probably a fan filter. Zhang Lingzi came out after picking out the brushes and saw a few people gathered outside. Her eyes passed over the rice paper in Qianyaya's hand and landed on the ink sticks on the table. She asked casually, are you done with the ink sticks? Easy to use. It's a little sticky when ground. It should be that the glue failed to blend well. I think so too, but if I want to use it, I have to ask Brother Jing Huai. Brother Jing Huai just help me write it? Jing Huai met Zhang Lingzi's gaze and said, it's quite smooth to write and easy to use. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the big words on the paper. After first seeing the effect of using the ink stick, she then looked at the words and asked, are these the words you wrote on the paper? Zhang Lingzi nodded and declined to comment. She really didn't see any similarity between this character and her own font. There was also silence in the commentator's observation room. If you were looking forward to it at the beginning, then Li Wangsuan was very disappointed. Just like this, can it also be called Yuan Zhao style? She was so angry that she felt angry because she hated using Yuan Zhao style to show off her ability. But in the end, it turned out to be nothing but bullshit. But there was someone beside her who added fuel to her fire. This is a good calligraphy. By the way, I remember Zhang Lingzi and teacher Zhang are filming Empress Yuan Zhao. There should be a lot of scenes of writing calligraphy in costume dramas. You can just ask Jing Huai to help with this part. Two people in the same company are still on the same show. How convenient. When the show is broadcast, Jing Huai's Yuan Zhao Ti can also add a lot to the show. It's a few points. As soon as Su Qingmei finished speaking, Li Wangsuan couldn't help but sneered, but before she could speak, an unceremonious voice reached everyone's ears. He deserves it too. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 297. Chapter 297. Don't sell it, keep it, and give it away. The observation room fell into deathly silence for a moment. It just so happened that the people on the screen were silent at this moment, and they could even clearly hear the faint sound of electricity generated by the operation of the indoor machines. Everyone's eyes are either directly or implicitly looking at the figure who speaks the least in every review, but speaks to the point. At the same time, he inevitably loses consciousness again. The gentleness before has faded, but the appearance of the ice-covered surface at this moment is even more shocking. Su Qingmei almost bit off her cheek flesh, but she could tell that Shen Yunqing was probably not tactful due to professional reasons, but she didn't expect that this person could speak so rudely in front of the camera, without caring about her face at all. But looking at that cold side face with eyebrows as distant as mountains from a close distance, she couldn't help but feel her heart beating wildly. The two emotions were intertwined for a while, causing her to become silent. Shen Yunqing sat in the center of everyone's attention. After saying the words "he is worthy" without any politeness, he lowered his eyelashes and didn't bother to look at the big words on the screen. He sat quietly without any intention of changing his words. Su Qingmei finally retracted her vague gaze, opened her mouth and lowered her voice. Mr. Shen's words are a bit too much. No matter what Jing Huai does, she is the one who works hard to get him into the program. Shen Yunqing openly criticized Jing Huai as unworthy, which indirectly also lost her face. However, when she asked this question with a bit of grievance, she did not get the slightest response from the other party. Shen Yunqing's ears had already blocked out the nonsense coming from Su Qingmei. When he noticed Zhang Lingzi on the split screen going to the drying room to get the finished ink strips, his thoughts changed. He has never used the ink sticks made by His Majesty himself. His Majesty made a total of 6 sticks this time. I wonder if he has a chance to ask for 2 of them. 1 stick will do. Su Qingmei was so angry at this disregard that she couldn't help but twist her face for a moment. This time she didn't need to give the PD a look, and the PD knew that this short section was about to be cut off. Just at this moment, Li Wangsuan said calmly, "It's true that I'm not worthy yet. Let's go back and practice hard for a few years before we see." After saying that, she looked towards Su Qingmei again. "This word is just for a layman. Okay, I know that Xiao Su and Jing Huai are both in the entertainment industry, and I want to help him, but young people are more motivated to continue working hard when they suffer setbacks, so it is definitely not a good thing to just blindly do it." Su Qingmei was stunned by such righteous words. It took several seconds to react. Her face turned a little blue, and she had to nod humbly in front of the camera and replied, "Thank you Mr. Li for your teaching. Qingmei is grateful taught." Li Wangsuan then looked away. "It's good to understand." Asterisk. As soon as Zhang Lingzi took out the prepared ink sticks, Qianyaya came over. He took what he made and compared it with the 6 ink sticks placed in front of him. "It's really different. Mine is a bit white, but teacher Jiang's is a bit purple. Well, it feels better to the touch. Teacher Jiang, can you sell me one of yours?" Zhang Lingzi looked at the little girl who was pleading with her hands clasped towards her, smiled slightly, and gently refused, "I won't sell it." "Ah, I want one, but you have 5 left." Zhang Lingzi had no choice but to tell her plan for these ink sticks: keep 2 for personal use and keep the other 4 to give away. "I really can't sell them." Qianyaya then took back her plan to buy with a look of regret. When Shen Yunqing heard her say that she was going to give away the ink sticks, her fingers on the table curled up unconsciously, and her ink jade bracelet shimmered in the dark. Just before it got completely dark, Su Yi finally received the approval from his master that the inkstone was successfully repaired. Hold the inkstone with no visible signs of fragmentation and hurried to join the other guests. Sorry for keeping everyone waiting." It didn't take long. Qianyaya, who was also a girl, waved her hand carelessly towards her. "It wasn't long before Teacher Zhang and I finished making the ink sticks." As she spoke, she looked at her hand again. "Have you completed your hiding mission?" These words made everyone's eyes fall on the inkstone held by Su Yi. Lu Sen moved his mouth to say something, but in the end he swallowed his words because he was worried about his sister standing outside the camera. "Well, it's done." Qianyaya gave her a thumbs up. "Amazing. At least she definitely doesn't have the patience to select and assemble a complete inkstone from a pile of fragments, and then glue all the fragments together. Just thinking about it makes her scalp numb." "Thanks." Chen Weiwen appeared out of nowhere and made a concluding speech. "I believe that everyone has gained a lot from this whole day of visiting and studying. Now it's time to say goodbye. Let us once again thank Teacher Luan for his generous donation." A day in the studio. Luan Zuiyu stood next to Chen Weiwen with a smile as bright as a flower. Director Chen is very polite. Several guests are crouching tiger, hidden dragon, and some even completed hidden tasks, which also opened my eyes. By the way, I also gained a lot of money. It's a small order. When Chen Weiwen heard her last sentence, he couldn't help but glance in the direction where Zhang Lingzi and Qianyaya were standing. Needless to say, Qianyaya ordered a set of calligraphy brushes in front of the camera. As for Zhang Lingzi, no one else knew, but he could see it clearly while sitting in front of the monitor. If the girl didn't buy it, even he would be punished by it. Living. Absolutely generous. Zhang Lingzi didn't think so much. Things like pens, inks, paper and inkstones were always more expensive than other things in her opinion. Otherwise, there would not have been such a saying in ancient times as Luoyang paper is more expensive than gold. But for scholars, this is something that must be bought no matter how expensive it is. She really doesn't feel like she bought much. But who allows the studio to have a purchase quota for everything? You can't just buy as much as you want. The moment all recording lenses were turned off, almost everyone relaxed. Zhang Lingzi called Su Lingan and Lu Zhengzheng and went back to fill in the purchase order and address. She liked the fact that if she bought too much, they could have it delivered to her door. Lu Sen rolled his eyes at the high-spirited Jing Huai. During the meeting yesterday, he thought this man was polite and gentlemanly, but after getting along with him for this day, he finally saw clearly that he was worthy of being an actor, and he was completely frightened. Coupled with the words I wrote before, the words are just like the person, they have a bright appearance, but there is no connotation inside. It really makes him look down upon. Lin Yo walked quickly to his girlfriend and handed over the brush in his hand. "Arlene, I made it myself. It's great. I didn't expect that I could learn a craft by participating in the show." "Well, the planning of this program is quite meaningful." Su Cheng carefully took the inkstone from his sister, looked at it over and over for a while, and then carefully put it away. "Sister, you have a new inkstone, why is my sister so good?" Shen Heshan walked up to Chen Weiwen and asked, "Director, when will we set off back?" He has not forgotten what Brother Xia said last night. He should be able to see his cousin today. What if I go back too late and my cousin has already fallen asleep? "We'll go back now," Chen Weiwen nodded repeatedly. we can have a meal together in the TV station cafeteria when we get back, and then we can disband. Can I not eat? I'm in a hurry to go home. Okay, it's up to you if you want to, but it's quite late to go back, so the cafeteria has prepared dinner. Shen Heshen touched his stomach and looked at the folding fan in his hand. It's okay, I'm not very hungry yet. Alas, he really sacrificed a lot in order to see his cousin earlier. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 298. The Other Side. As the screen went black, the camera in the observation room also turned off. Li Wangsuan helped her waist and just stood up when Shi Lao stepped forward quickly. How are you doing? I'm really tired after sitting for so long. I'll help you and I'll help you. Oh, you should take a break during the intermission. I'll tell the PD next time if you feel tired, just give me a look. Still a little hungry. According to the program team's inertia, dinner should be prepared. Lao Shi just finished speaking. PD clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. Thank you teachers for your hard work. The cafeteria on the second floor has prepared dinner for everyone. Let's go back after eating. Shi Lao immediately looked at his wife with a proud look on his face. Look, I guessed it right. However, compared to the old couple who were helping each other to prepare for dinner, Su Qingmei, who was sitting next to them, was really not in the mood to stay for dinner. Until the corner of her eye caught sight of Shen Yunqing, who had just stood up from her seat next to her. She paused in her movements to call her assistant over. Mr. Shen. Shen Yunqing was about to leave when he was called with his palm still on the back of the chair. Ms. Su. Su Qingmei's smile couldn't help but freeze. She has been called Teacher Su, Miss Su, Sister Su over the years, but she has never been called Ms. Su. She took a step forward and was about to speak when she saw the person in front of her let go of the back of the chair and took a step back without hesitation. Su Qingmei. She was about to laugh out loud. I would like to know if Mr. Shen has any objections to me. No. This was answered quickly, as unhesitatingly as his previous action of taking a step back. Su Qingmei was startled again, that was in front of the camera. Shen Yunqing looked at her calmly. It's just a matter of fact and has nothing to do with Ms. Su herself. Su Qingmei looked at the eyes in front of her. First, the tips of her ears couldn't help but feel hot, and then her heart felt cold again. These eyes were undoubtedly beautiful, and could even be said to be the most beautiful ones she had ever seen. She couldn't help but want to treasure them. But these eyes were also the most ruthless she had ever seen. Even when they were facing her, these eyes showed no emotion at all, as if she was no different than a piece of wood. The more this happens, the more unwilling she is. It's hard to imagine what it would be like for such a cool and dignified man who was not moved by her at all if he fell for her one day. Mr. Shen and I met on this show by chance. Now that the cameras are off, Mr. Shen is still so cold and nonchalant, it's really sad. There happened to be a staff member passing by in front of the two people's table. He heard the slightly resentful voice of Su Yinghao, who had always been famous, and felt that his bones were half crispy. Can't help but look at Mr. Shen with envy, and he suddenly wakes up after seeing this. Well, he doesn't deserve it. Shen Yunqing's bones were not soft, and he was even a little bored in his heart. He is not really an innocent boy in his 20s who has never been in love. Even though he was single in his previous life, there was always the shadow of a person hidden in his heart. In modern terms, he has tasted the taste of secret love. What this woman's intentions were, he could tell at a glance from those disgusting eyes. If you don't have to worry about the people around you, if Ms. Su has nothing serious to do, I don't think we need to talk. Farewell. After saying that, he quickened his pace and left the observation room. If he had known that there was Su Qingmei among the commentators of this episode, he should have found a way to exclude them before the show started recording. It's really a bad mood. Su Qingmei looked at Shen Yunqing's hurried away figure. her eyes flickering. Until her assistant said cautiously, "Sister King Mei, the nanny car is already waiting outside the door. Let's not leave in a hurry." Su King Mei met the surprised look of the assistant and tapped her hand on the table. "The program team has kindly prepared dinner for us. How can we live up to this kindness?" The assistant's eyes couldn't help but twitch when he heard this. She has been working as an assistant next to Su King Mei for quite some time. She doesn't know 100% about this person's temperament, but she is also 70% to 80% confident. This is obviously because he still doesn't give up on Mr. Shen. But Mr. Shen, from appearance to temperament, is indeed much better than the favorite Jing Huai now. No, it should be that there is no comparison between the two. But the selection this time is not so easy to guide. She had a hunch that Su King Mei's previously successful tricks with the opposite would not be of much use to Mr. Shen. But she didn't dare to persuade him, let alone remind him that there was Jing Huai in the show who could barely be called the current one, so she could only nod her head obediently. Asterisk. When the group of people took the elevator to the canteen, the minibus responsible for picking up the guests also stopped downstairs at the TV station. Shen Heshan was dragged out of the car by Lu Sen. "I'm so hungry today, but fortunately I'll be able to eat soon. Why are you still so listless?" Shen Heshan glanced at him reluctantly. "My brother is not at home." "That cousin of yours, the one who taught you how to write calligraphy and paint, I'm not telling you, you're already a grown man, how can you still be so clingy to your cousin? You're like a little girl." Shen Heshan shook his shoulders and shook Lu Sen's arm. "You are the little girl. I don't have much chance to see him all year round. This time I still can't see him in the Emperor. I guess we will meet again soon. It's the end of the year. What on earth does your cousin do? He didn't come home so late, so he's so busy. I sent a message to Brother Xia when I was in the car. If I'm not at home, I'm probably still busy at the company." Otherwise, instead of being dragged to the canteen by Lu Sen, he would have turned around and headed back to Z1. "You are a business owner, you are really busy." Lu Sen patted the new brother on the shoulder and comforted him. "It's okay, I'll stay with you. Who wants your company?" At the entrance of the cafeteria, the 2.5-year-old boys stopped chatting and playing around. At this time, there were not many people still eating in the canteen, so the huge canteen seemed empty, which made the group of people who had just sat down more conspicuous. Shen Heshan was pulled by Lu Sen to the direction of the buffet to get food. His eyes accidentally glanced at a figure who had just sat down in the corner. He stopped suddenly and his eyes widened in disbelief. Lu Sen was taken a few steps back by this meal. "Why don't you leave?" I think I saw my brother," Shen Heshan said without hesitation. He shook off Lu Sen's hand holding his and ran towards the familiar figure. He had to confirm whether he was hallucinating because he wanted to see people so much. Just halfway through, he saw another swaying figure walking towards that direction, blocking his sight. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 299. Chapter 299, In a Trance, I Want the Ink Made by Your Own Hands. Mr. Shen is really good at choosing a location. It's quiet here and you can see the beautiful night view. I came a little late, so I let Mr. Shen get there first. Shen Yunqing picked up the chopsticks he was about to put down. It seems that Mr. Shen prefers Chinese food. Su Qingmei glanced at the food on the plate in front of Shen Yunqing. "I also like to eat while watching the night view. Do you mind sharing a table?" As soon as Zhang Lingzi stepped into the dining hall, she heard two people following behind her talking quietly. Lu Zhengzheng, who was thinking about cooking, "Wow, today is a buffet." Su Ling'an, who can still analyze calmly, "It's probably because the people dining this time are of all ages." That's true. Lu Zhengzhen nodded in agreement when he saw that among the people who were already eating were white-haired grandfathers and grandmothers, as well as Qianyaya, who was already running to the buffet. Su Lingyan saw that her eyes were about to fly to the food, and he took the bag in her hand in a funny way. Sister Zhengzhen, you and your sister go to get the food first, and I will find a place to put the bag first. Lu Zhengzhen cupped her hands towards Su Lingyan with a look of emotion on her face. Oh, well, thank you for your hard work, Anan. Zhang Lingzi looked back at the two of them. You two go ahead, I'll put my bags away and wash my hands by the way. Even though she didn't get much on her hands when making ink before, she still wanted to wash her hands when she was going to eat. After finishing speaking, he couldn't help but take the two bags from Su Lingyan's hand. Go quickly, otherwise all the delicious food will be taken away. As soon as Lu Zhengzhen heard that it was okay, she immediately grabbed Su Lingyan and ran towards the buffet. Zhang Lingzi found a corner and was about to put down her bag when she heard a familiar voice coming from the side. Then let's give this position to Ms. Su. She put down her bag for a moment, then turned to look at the source of the sound. The thin and smooth gray material was embroidered with dark bamboo leaf patterns. Zhang Lingzi could tell at a glance that the gray fabric was made of the same material as the gray dress she was wearing. She didn't know what the name of the fabric was now, but it had a nice name thousands of years ago. His name is Muyun silk. On the hand holding the plate, a black jade bracelet is particularly conspicuous. His eyes moved up, and finally fell on the thin silver gray metal spectacle legs. Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows. After putting down her bag, she didn't rush to the bathroom to wash her hands. She had enough time to watch someone turn around with a plate. What a coincidence! Shen Yunqing. The eyes under the plain lenses blinked lightly. Do you mind sharing a table? Zhang Lingzi. She glanced at Su Qingmei, who looked a little gloomy, and then looked at Shen Yunqing standing in front of her. Okay. Plates with food were almost immediately placed on the table she had just chosen. Before Zhang Lingzi put down the bag, Shen Yunqing stretched out his newly free hand to take the bag. I'll look at the bag, and you go get the food. Zhang Lingzi nodded towards him, paused when she passed Su Qingmei's side, turned her head and met a pair of eyes that looked like they were about to burst into flames. Their eyes met for only a second, but Su Qingmei couldn't help but take a step back first, and almost stepped on the hem of her long skirt, which made her feel a little more embarrassed. Zhang Lingzi then looked away and walked towards the bathroom. Su Qingmei put her dinner plate on the table in a panic, and took a deep breath to suppress the fear that arose in her heart. Just for a moment, she almost thought that she was not facing an insignificant third-tier actor, but an emperor and general who was decisive and terrifying. What are you doing? I've already prepared the food. When I turn around, I see you standing here blankly. What are you looking at? Didn't I say I saw your brother? Where is he? The familiar chattering voice came from behind, awakening Shen Heshan, who was still in shock. I'd better go get some food first. At this moment, he couldn't believe what he had just seen. First he saw a beautiful woman walking up to his cousin and chatting with him before he stopped. But seeing his cousin's unpretentious expression, he knew that the woman must have fallen in love with his cousin's beauty, but his cousin obviously didn't. That woman. Originally, he thought it was over here, and was about to step forward to help his cousin out of the siege. Then he saw Teacher Zhang, who was recording the show with them today, walking over and saying something to his cousin. Isn't it a little far away? He heard it, but soon he saw as if he had seen a ghost that his cousin stood up with the plate in hand, and moved smoothly to the position chosen by Teacher Zhang. After putting down the plate, he also diligently took the bag from Teacher Jiang's hand. At that moment he couldn't help but wonder if this person simply looked like his cousin. After all, as long as he has grown up, he has never seen his cousin treat any woman so lightly. Then go quickly, let me tell you, the braised pork today is so delicious, I don't know if it will be available again. Shen Heshan stopped listening to what Lu Sen said later. He went over to make a meal in a daze. After finishing the meal, he saw Lu Sen sitting on his seat waving to him. Then he walked over and sat down in a daze. He picked up a piece of braised pork with chopsticks and put it into his mouth. It wasn't until he was asked how it tasted that he finally came to his senses and said, I didn't taste it." Lu Zhengzheng and Su Ling'an walked back with carefully selected food. They scanned around and did not see Zhang Lingzi. Instead, they saw two unexpected figures. Su Qingmei. Mr. Shen, brother-in-law. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other in astonishment. What is going on? How could these two appear in the cafeteria of Imperial TV station, and at this time? Fortunately, Su Ling'an calmed down first and reminded Lu Zhengzheng, who was still in a daze, "Sister Zhengzheng, please go over and say hello first." "Ah, good." The two of them stepped forward cautiously. Before they could speak, Shen Yunqing nodded to them and said in a warm voice, "Miss Zhang has not returned from the bathroom." Lu Zhengzheng and Su Ling'an knew what the couple usually called them when they were outside. They nodded subconsciously, then looked at the familiar bag on the opposite side. After hesitating for a moment, they didn't ask further, let's take the bag, go eat in the back." Even though this is a four-person team, they are determined not to be light bulbs. So when Zhang Lingzi came back with the meal, she saw that the two bags on the seat were missing. Shen Yunqing was sitting opposite, the food on the plate was not moved at all, and he was waiting for her with his mobile phone. And Zhengzheng. In the back seat. Zhang Lingzi turned around and saw two little heads engrossed in eating. "Tell me, what's going on?" She had already looked around when she was picking up the food. It seemed that the only people still eating in the cafeteria at this point were the staff and guests of the Heritage Program group. She also had a vague guess in her heart, but she still wanted to hear the explanation from the person in front of her. Shen Yunqing put down his cell phone. "Originally, I wanted a seat in the audience, but it was a pity that it was too late. I heard that the commentator still had a seat available, so I came." "Zhang Lingzi, so free. Ahem, come and relax." Zhang Lingzi lowered her eyes, picked up a piece of fish from the plate, and took a few bites, thinking about it in her heart. He simply didn't expose this poor excuse and pointed in the direction of Su Qingmei, who was separated by a screen. "That one too?" "Well, I didn't know until I came here." Zhang Lingzi's eyes darkened, and she didn't say much more, considering the public occasion. "Then how did you record the commentator's part?" The format of this program was different from the previous one. The guests were on the stage and the reviewers were in the VIP seats. Both parties were in the same space. This time she did not see the reviewers in the studio. She was really curious. Shen Yunqing answered without hesitation, "In the observation room, there is a screen to see you." "I see. I saw on the screen that you made a few squares of ink. Well done, but my arms may be sore tomorrow." "It doesn't matter. I use my left hand most of the time. If I have to paint tomorrow, it won't hinder the use of my right hand," Zhang Lingzi said, raising her eyes and looking over. When she saw someone who was hesitant to speak, she raised her eyebrows slightly. "What, want it?" End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 300. Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but chuckle, took out a small wooden box from the small bag she carried with her, put it on the table and pushed it to Shen Yunqing's hand. The surprise was so great that someone was rarely stunned staring at the box so close. "I have prepared one for you," Zhang Lingzi continued eating happily after delivering the things. "You are brave enough to ask me for something." In her previous life, only courtiers paid tribute to her, and no courtier dared to ask her for anything directly. Shen Yunqing stretched out his hand and carefully touched the edge of the box, and then heard such a joke, in a very low voice. His Majesty also condoned it. Thanks to Zhang Lingzi's good ear, she could hear clearly what he said. Seeing that this man had not eaten yet and was about to open the box, she stopped him. Eat first, otherwise you have to wash your hands again after touching the ink stick. Shen Yunqing had no choice but to put down the box obediently. Like a child receiving a gift. This behavior is somewhat childish. But it's quite cute that the person in front of me would do something that doesn't really suit his status. Zhang Lingzi swallowed the rest of her words back into her stomach with her rice. Asterisk. Jing Huai noticed Su Qingmei, who was eating alone in the corner. He hesitated for a moment and walked over. Although the relationship between the two of them cannot be exposed, there are not many actors in the entire cafeteria now. He went to share a table with his senior, who is also an actor. He expected that other people in the cafeteria would not think much about it even if they saw it. However, you have to be honest, Teacher Su, can I share a table with you? Su Qingmei didn't even take a few bites of the Western food in front of her. She was listening to the conversation between Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing, separated by a screen. Even she didn't expect that these two people actually knew each other and seemed to be quite familiar with them. Shen Yunqing is the person she likes, but not only has she not got him yet, she has not even been able to talk to him, and this person is also very cold to her. Now she behaves so differently to a young actor like Zhang Lingzi, how can she feel better? Unfortunately, both of them spoke in low pitches. Even if she listened attentively, she could only hear a few broken words, which could not be connected to a complete sentence. Just as he was getting agitated, Jing Huai came up to him. The eavesdropper was forced to interrupt. Standing in front of her was another person who had always been submissive to her. No one noticed her, so she simply stopped pretending and ordered angrily, "It's inconvenient. You can go find her somewhere else." He didn't think Su Qingmei would refuse. Jing Huai, who was about to put the plate on the table, suddenly froze. His eyes fell on Su Qingmei's face in disbelief, but when he met those depressed eyes, he looked up. The hand holding the plate couldn't help shaking. "No, I'm sorry to disturb Teacher Su's solitude, I'll leave now." Before he fell in love with Su Qingmei by chance, Jing Huai had a heartfelt admiration for this top-notch actress who went global at a young age. To be a top-notch actor in China, you may only need a good face and a TV series that becomes popular by chance. But those who can go international have real abilities. Coupled with the fact that Su Qingmei's reputation in the industry and among fans has always been very good, admiration is a natural thing. It wasn't until he had real contact in private that he realized that what he had thought all along was totally wrong. Su Qingmei is by no means a good-tempered person. The more repressed her nature is, the crazier she becomes in private. From admiration to fear, it started when he really got to know Su Qingmei. Jing Huai turned around and walked back in a daze. He didn't want to eat to fill his stomach now, he just wanted to leave the space where Su Qingmei was. Just as he was about to put the plate in his hand into the tableware recycling place, a lively and clear voice sounded from behind him. "Brother Jing Huai, are you ready to leave?" Jing Huai turned around and saw Qianyaya standing in front of the table opposite. He was about to nod when he saw the girl's eyes falling on the dinner plate in his hand. He said with a serious face, "Brother Jing Huai, it's wrong to waste food." Being taught by a high school student, and a high school fan of his own, that even a child knows, Jing Huai looked down at the untouched food on the plate and blushed for a moment. Asterisk. It was almost 9 o'clock after dinner. Shen Yunqing put down the tissue he was using to wipe his hands, then took the box and opened it carefully. 2 high-quality ink strips were lying quietly in the box. He picked up one and looked at it carefully for a moment, and said with a little more admiration in his voice, "It is indeed top quality. Zhang Lingzi has never known what modesty is, that's it, and I don't care who made it." Shen Yunqing couldn't help but smile. "Your Majesty has always done his best in whatever he does. He saw it in his last life." A shadow suddenly fell over the table where the two were sitting facing each other. Zhang Lingzi looked up and was not surprised to see Shen Heshen. From seeing the words written by Shen Heshen with a brush and contacting Shen Heshen whose surname was Shen, she had a guess in her mind. Although Prime Minister Shen in his previous life had no wife or children, he came from the Shen family, which has been a family for thousands of years. It is not difficult for such a big family to have descendants to continue it. Shen Heshen mustered up the courage to come here. While eating this meal, he was thinking about the relationship between teacher Zhang and his cousin. For this reason, he didn't hear clearly what Lu Sen said to him. He was kicked the stool several times. Since he can remember, he was forced to study calligraphy and painting with his cousin because of his naughty nature. He has never seen anyone of the opposite around his cousin. Now he actually saw his cousin eating at the same table as a female star in the entertainment industry, and the two were chatting happily. Had he not seen it with his own eyes, he would never have dared to dream of such a scene. But this time someone else came over and looked at Zhang Lingzi. For a while, she didn't know what to say. I should have thought about what to say before I came here. Shen Yunqing put the ink stick back into the box, carefully fastened the lid of the box and took it in his hand. Then he looked at his little cousin standing beside him like a pillar. Why are you here? Shen Heshen's eyes that were somewhat similar to Shen Yunqing's eyes suddenly blinked in disbelief. I just came over to say hello. Does this mean you dislike him? Think he's an eyesore? Chen Chen is wronged, but Chen Chen doesn't say anything. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the young man who still couldn't hide his emotions, coughed slightly and interrupted the child's thoughts. Let me introduce him. Shen Heshen, the child of my uncle's family. After Shen Yunqing finished speaking, he saw that Zhang Lingzi didn't look surprised at all, so he knew that Zhang Lingzi had already guessed this level, and asking him to introduce it was just for confirmation. His words. I practiced my calligraphy and I also taught my painting. Shen Yunqing was frank at this time, and even revealed the secret of his little cousin. He was very naughty and mischievous when he was a child, so my uncle sent him to I am here to cultivate my moral character, and I think there is no better way to practice this than by learning calligraphy and painting. So his teacher is you? Zhang Lingzi sighed and said with a smile, that's my fierce rival. During the Yuan Zhao dynasty, no one knew that Prime Minister Shen was not only highly regarded by the emperor for his strategizing, but he was also excellent in calligraphy and painting. Cousin, Shen Heshen, who was exposed, protested in a low voice with red ears. He did not forget to ask himself the most curious question of the day, are you and teacher Zhang? Shen Yunqing looked at him calmly and said, you can change the title. So, Sister Zhang. Zhang Lingzi laughed unkindly.